Number 9. Indian Goonch. If you were to hear that catfish can be found in waters near you, you likely wouldn't be that scared. It's mainly because catfish are common all over the world, and they're a prized catch for many fishermen. However, in the Himalayas, among other places in South Asia, there is the infamous devil catfish. It's got another particularly bizarre name too. It's also known as the goonch. This is a massive catfish that can very easily get over 6.5 feet in length. That is much, much more than your standard catfish, and it's rumored to swallow people whole. What really makes this a river monster is that there are a plethora of stories about the goonch that claim that this catfish would bite down on people's legs as they traversed the river and would drag them down into the depths. Strong young men would go swimming in rivers with friends and get sucked underwater, and nobody would ever see them again. This would eventually get extreme angler Jeremy Wade to check them out on his show aptly called River Monsters, where he noted, "These things don't have much of a brain, but if it did grab someone's foot and then swim to deeper water, you're not going to easily get yourself out of that grip." Unusually for catfish, they have very long, pointy teeth and very strong jaws. Jeremy Wade was told by locals that the monster fish had developed a taste for human flesh, and it was getting bigger as it ate human remains discarded from funeral pyres along the riverbanks. It is unclear whether this is true or not, but this creepy fish is large enough to make people just disappear. Number 8. Giant Amazon Leech. Leeches are a species of creature that most people know to avoid. They look disgusting and they like to suck blood. But when it comes to finding them in rivers, there are few more dangerous than the giant Amazon leech. As the name implies, this leech is truly a giant and is one of the world's largest. It can grow up to 17.7 inches in length and be 4 inches wide. That size is enough to give you pause before you remember they're also a parasitic organism. They'll latch onto your body, and they won't let go unless you or a medical professional perform proper removal techniques, which with this one might take some time. One of the main ironies of the giant Amazon leech was that in the late 1800s, it was thought to be extinct. Then some more were found, and one was brought to a university. They named the leech Grandma Moses and studied it closely. It and its 750 children. It's truly a terrifying example of how something simple can become a true river monster. So have you ever encountered a real-life leech? Would you even dare to let one suck your blood? Let me know in the comments below. Then be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. We've got more awesome videos just like this one on the way. Number 7. Congo tigerfish. Arguably one of the most dangerous fish in the world, the Congo tigerfish, also known as the Goliath tigerfish among other names, is a truly large and intimidating fish that can attack humans very easily. However, they are found in the Congo River in Africa, so it's unlikely you'll run into one anytime soon unless maybe it's in an aquarium. Or if they become an invasive species somewhere, but hopefully not, because these things are extremely destructive. In terms of size, they're able to get about 5 feet in length, and their teeth can get 1 inch in length. The fish is known for attacking people, so much so that local legends state that an evil spirit would inhabit the fish and cause it to strike. This was another fish that Jeremy Wade would catch, and he had quite the visual to describe. It's related to piranhas. It's actually a giant piranha, really. They can grow to the size of a large person. The teeth on this one are 1 inch long, which is about the same size as the teeth on a 1,000-pound great white shark. The photos are truly disturbing. Number 6. Bull shark. Sharks are another creature that many people know to stay away from, and most people would guess erroneously that if they were to go to rivers, they would be safe from sharks. However, certain sharks, like the bull shark, are able to live in both saltwater and freshwater. This even includes places like Australia, as well as the Amazon River, where attacks have been recorded in countries like Peru. And sharks have even been spotted up the Mississippi River in the US. Should you fear this river monster? Yeah, absolutely. While great white sharks are the most feared shark because of movie interpretations of them, bull shark is said to be an even more dangerous shark, with over 27% of their attacks on humans being fatal. And yes, that's more than the great white. Furthermore, scientists have noted that these numbers aren't fully accurate, because it's actually quite hard to distinguish the bull shark from other types of sharks due to its coloring and size. Thus, this river monster could have more deaths under its belt, and we wouldn't even know about it. Plus, the biggest reason people should fear this shark is that they're overly aggressive and unpredictable. They'll take any slight indignation as a reason to lash out, which is why so many people have been hurt by them. And if you're thinking that the rivers they inhabit are ones close to the ocean, one bull shark was found in Illinois. That's a full 700 miles away from the closest ocean. So this river monster could be much closer to you than you realize. Number 5. Electric eel. The electric eel, also known as the knife fish, is a very dangerous river monster that everyone should be aware of for various reasons. The electric eel has not one, but 3 different organs in its body that can produce an electric charge. It has such a powerful electric charge that it truly can kill an adult human instantly in certain cases. That's due to it being able to discharge people with 500 volts of electricity. Though to be clear, just standing in water can help the jolt kill a human, but since you find them in rivers, that still makes them incredibly dangerous. The electric eel resides solely in the Amazon River and the Orinoco River in South America, but it's also stated to be one of the deadliest creatures that live in that area because of its electric power and the fact that they're able to hide in the rivers rather easily and thus jolt you before you even realize they're there. If only there were a way for humans to harness their powerful electricity, then maybe we could have some clean energy from electric eel farms someday. That'd be pretty cool. Number 4. Green anaconda. Not all river monsters are fish or other aquatic creatures. There are some more land-based animals that you need to fear as well, such as the green anaconda. The average size of this snake can vary at times. It'll be between 18 and 20 feet, but at its maximum length, this anaconda can be up to 27 feet long. Weight-wise, they can have around 550 pounds on them, but what surprises many people is that they live in rivers and swamps in South America, including the Amazon. Thus, if you're careful, you'll never have to see one, though if you do, you might be in some serious trouble. It's true that they're not typically known to eat humans, but that doesn't mean they won't kill us if the need arises. They've eaten humans on occasion, but you can almost always escape them if you see them and aren't injured. As for the animals that they do like to eat, you'll find them dining on deer, tapir, caiman, crocodiles, fishes, and turtles. What's intimidating about them, though, is that the green anaconda are ambush predators. They'll wait for prey to come to them and then strike. Usually they do this by wrapping their bodies around their prey and squeezing them to death. They like to be on the shallower waters of the Amazon River and other bodies of water. This allows them to sneak up on prey even easier, as they'll blend into the water without much effort. Number 3. Black caiman. The black caiman resides in the Amazon rainforest and river, and it's considered the biggest threat to people who come to the area. This particular breed of crocodile is one of the biggest alive, measuring in at 20 feet at times. It's also one of the largest predators in the entire Amazon rainforest. Many label it as the apex predator of the area, and one that isn't really picky about the things it'll eat. It'll go after fish, after birds, after mammals, and yes, it'll even go after humans if the situation is right. Like many crocodiles and alligators, the black caiman is a species that prides itself on being an ambush predator or a first strike predator. It'll wade into the waters of the Amazon River and its tributaries, and then slowly sneak up on the animal it wants to eat, and then lash out. Plus, because the creature is willing to hunt at night, it makes it even harder to see in the water, especially since its skin tone has a natural camouflage that enables it to blend in for close encounters. A true river monster indeed. Number 2. Piranha. Piranhas are arguably the most well-known river monster in the world today, and for good reason. They can be really vicious predators. They prefer to hunt and eat in swarms, so that when they're done, there's nothing left but the bones. And that's something that's been happily shown in various films over the years, though often to egregious levels, but make no mistake, they do indeed pick the bones clean. Plus, piranhas aren't small at all. They'll get up to 2 feet in length at times. When you multiply that by a swarm, they have all they need to get their prey and eat them until there's nothing left to chew on. So you might be wondering though, are these fish monsters because they hunt and kill humans? No, they honestly don't. Piranhas prefer prey that is weak in various ways. That way, they can't resist the swarm descending on them and killing them. After all, if a creature is large enough and healthy enough, they'll just get out of the water. But a weakened foe is easier to subdue. If a human was to fall into a swarm of piranha, they'd have to be taken out really quickly, or they'd probably just get away, albeit with a lot of bites on them and a serious need for medical attention, but they would probably get away. Plus, a misconception about piranhas is that all of their species are full-on meat eaters, and that's honestly not the case. Some are herbivores, some are omnivores, and yes, some are meat eaters purely, like the red-bellied piranha, which are the most dangerous of them all. But not all of them are overt killers, which is an important thing to remember. That being said, piranhas are very well organized. They signal to each other when prey is weak, and they'll even share the food with others so everyone gets a bite. Plus, since you can't likely tell the difference between the various kinds of piranha, it's best to just stay away if you see one of these river monsters. Number 1. Alligator snapping turtle. A turtle as a river monster? It can't be right. It's probably what you're thinking right now, correct? But there are exceptions to every rule, and the alligator snapping turtle is one such example of that. Located in the southeastern region of the United States, these turtles are not ones you want to tempt fate with. Not the least of which is their size. These turtles are huge. One was even said to weigh 400 pounds. Plus, the reason they're called alligator snapping turtles is that they're a bit more aggressive than your standard turtle. They can pierce metal with their chompers, and they even have evolved to use their tongue as a lure for fish, so that they'll willingly come into their mouths to be consumed. Granted, these turtles are not known for attacking humans, but they're not ones to be provoked. Again, they can pierce metal, which means they're more than strong enough to get through a human body. Number 10. The Jesus boat. The artifact known as the Jesus boat is also sometimes called the Ancient Galilee boat. This thing was originally a fishing boat from around 2,000 years ago, but was discovered on the bottom of the Sea of Galilee back in 1986. But this is no ordinary fishing boat. According to some accounts, it's the original boat used by Jesus and his disciples. It's the exact same type of boat dated back to the 1st century AD and may have been the same one mentioned at least 50 times throughout the Gospels. In 1986, the boat was discovered by a pair of fishermen and amateur artifact hunters. It took the Israel Antiquities Authority 12 days just to dig it out of the mud. The boat itself is 27 feet long and would have been rowed by 4 rowers. It was wrapped in protective wax and preserved for 12 years before being put on display. And even though the boat is an exact match to the one Jesus used, spoken of in the Bible and by Roman authors of the day, there are still some skeptics. After all, some people still question whether Jesus truly existed. But if all the biblical and Roman accounts of the day are correct, then this is most likely his boat. Number 9. The CONCHO stone. The CONCHO stone is a mysterious object first discovered in 1887. It was hidden in a patch of woodland out in rural Scotland. The rock itself is a huge slab covered with Stone Age carvings, with the site being one of the most neglected prehistoric places in all of the UK. According to archaeologists, the rock is at least 5,000 years old. It's also 42 feet by 26 feet and has at least 90 grooved spirals, indentations, and rings. The petroglyphs even include a pair of 4-toed feet, which doesn't match with any known animal that would have been thriving 5,000 years ago in Britain. Dr. Brophy from the University of Glasgow has said that the rock is the most important Neolithic art display in all of Europe. Unfortunately, the rock was reburied in 1965 to protect it from the elements after it was poorly managed and frequently vandalized. While researchers aren't 100% sure what all the carvings on the rock mean, it's still one of the oldest pieces of drawn imagery in the history of mankind, especially in Britain. Whatever our Neolithic ancestors wanted to say with their spirals and rings has been lost to history. Number 8. Disturbing mermaid. We're all familiar with the horrifying mermaid cryptids found online. There are dozens of these horrific beasts, almost none of which are real, circulating the internet. But the one we're going to talk about today is special. This freak of nature is known as the Horniman merman. It has fangs, it's ugly, and it's located in the Horniman Centenary Gallery at the Horniman Museum and Gardens in the UK. The taxidermy creature is some kind of Japanese monkeyfish. At least that's how the museum register describes it. It's definitely real, and it's definitely not a merman. So what is this disturbing creature? Well, after one of the workers at the museum took the creature for CT scans, the mystery was solved. Its head is actually made from paper mache, its innards are made from fabric packing, the hands are made from wire, the neck is made from wood, the jaws are real fish jaws, and the lower half is made of real fish skin and scales. The fake creature allegedly came from Japan, but nobody is entirely sure who made it or why. Back in the day, there was a tradition amongst Japanese sailors to create these ugly mermaid things and sell them. Europeans loved collecting them and would pay big money to bring back these freaky creations. There were several similar ones that made the rounds in various circuses, and people would pay a lot of money to see these merpeople, who are a far cry from the gorgeous seductress we're expecting. Number 7. Mysterious crop circle. Nothing screams aliens quite like crop circles, and while a lot of people dismiss crop circles as being nothing but hoaxes perpetrated by poor farmers, the truth is that these do sometimes happen. This newest crop circle appeared near the German town of Paul. As you can imagine, there have been plenty of theories about where the crop circle came from. Some people say aliens, some people say wind patterns, and some people even say the crop circles were made by some kind of unknown energy burst. However, it's hard to believe that wind or energy could create such a geometrically perfect design. It's also hard to imagine that any farmer could get away with doing this overnight without any help from above. And while it may look impressive from the ground, you really can't understand the grandeur of the crop circle unless looking at it from the sky. Not even some of the best artists could create something like this while working blind. Not even some of the best artists in the world could create something like this working blind. Number 6. Ancient chariots. In 2014, there was a very controversial discovery made. World News Daily Report published an article saying that chariot wheels and the bones of horses and humans had been found at the bottom of the Red Sea. This is an outstanding claim, as it would mean proof of the biblical story about how the Israelites escaped from Egypt. If you need a bit of a refresher, God allegedly parted the Red Sea and allowed Moses to lead his people out of Egypt. Then the waters closed again, and the Egyptian army was drowned. The discovery supposedly was even confirmed by Egypt's Antiquities Ministry. However, the discovery apparently never happened. According to Snopes, there was never any chariot wheels or horses found beneath the Red Sea by divers. The article is a total farce, with no artifacts actually being found. And that's kind of a huge bummer. It would have kind of added to the possibility of the Jesus boat being authentic. And hey, maybe even the Ark of the Covenant would prove to be real as well. Number 5. Ancient bone arrowheads. In South Africa, the earliest bone arrowheads have been found, and you won't believe how old they are. The stone points unearthed by scientists are supposedly 64,000 years old. This would have been at a time when humans were just figuring out how to fashion implements using stone. These could very well be the first arrowheads ever fired from a bow. It's an incredible discovery, and it was made inside of a cave, with the arrowheads hidden under a layer of sediment. When it comes to stone artifacts this old, researchers are used to finding spear tips. However, after close analysis in the lab, researchers discovered that the fragments of stone that they'd found were too sharp to be part of a spear. They also held traces of a very early glue, a type of plant-based resin that likely was used to fasten the arrow tip to a thin wooden shaft. Both of these discoveries show the earliest signs of humans using technology. It also pushes the development of bow and arrow technology back by 20,000 years. It may not have been a technology found everywhere, but humans in this part of Africa were definitely ahead of the curve. A researcher from the Natural History Museum in London said that the discovery of the arrowheads shows roughly the exact time when humans in Africa began to hunt in a new way using bows instead of spears. Number 4. Blood snow. Our next discovery is a little freaky. On an island in Antarctica, the snow appears to be bleeding. This discovery came in the winter of 2020, when the snow around a Ukrainian research base in the northernmost tip of Antarctica began to turn blood red. But no, there was no giant penguin massacre and nobody was murdered. The red in the snow was actually a type of algae with an extremely long and complicated name that hides inside of snowfields and mountains all over the world. The algae thrives in very cold water. Then in the summer, when everything heats up, the algae blooms and spreads in thousands and thousands of red spores, causing the snow to look like blood. And believe it or not, the amazing red color comes from carotenoids, which are the same pigments which make pumpkins and carrots orange. Talk about everything being connected. Number 3. The Pilate Stone. Here we have another amazing discovery out of Israel. And yes, it's another discovery that has to do with the Bible. You see, up until 1961, there'd been absolutely no evidence that Pontius Pilate, the judge who had allegedly sentenced Jesus to death, had ever truly existed. This is because there's no administrative records that survived from those days, and his name was never found anywhere in the Roman ruins in Israel. That was until 1961, when a team of archaeologists found a giant piece of limestone while working at a seaside ruin called Caesarea Maritima near the Mediterranean Sea. On the giant chunk of limestone was etched the name Pontius Pilate. This is one of the more fascinating discoveries because it has legitimized an actual person from a story in the Bible. A man who until then had just been a controversial character was proven to be real. Of course, the existence of Pontius doesn't confirm Jesus rising from the dead or atoning for our sins, but it definitely brings a new level of legitimacy to the New Testament. Number 2. Space aliens breeding with humans. A very unique instructor from the University of Oxford in England has made a startling claim. As reported by NBC News, this university instructor has come forward with the news that aliens are creating hybrids of themselves and us. The instructor's name is Young-Hai Chi, and he claims that because of a dramatic increase in alien abductions throughout the last decade, aliens are stealing more and more people to create genetic hybrids. This is completely bizarre and it doesn't quite make sense, but the instructor says that abduction experiments are causing greenhouse gases to go berserk, but not to fear. The instructor says extraterrestrials are producing hybrids so that in the future we can withstand the higher temperatures that will scorch the Earth. This guy claims that by producing new models of humans, we won't have any issues when the world heats up. Of course, there are a lot of skeptics to this discovery. First of all, it seems like aliens would probably maybe have better things to do. And secondly, there's the rising sea levels to worry about, which seems much more important than being able to beat the heat. Nonetheless, it's still a fascinating theory to put forward, especially as a professional university instructor. And who knows, maybe Young-Hai Chi is right and has made the breakthrough discovery of the century. Number 1. Radio waves. The final discovery today is definitely a weird one. It's a cosmic first, and it only lasted for 1.5 milliseconds. It all went down when scientists detected a fast radio burst from within our own galaxy. This isn't the first time that a fast radio burst, or FRB, has been detected, but it is the first time that it happened within our own Milky Way. So what is an FRB? It's an intense pulse of radio waves that releases heaps of energy in just a few thousandths of a second. It's a burst of energy that lasts a fraction of a second and contains more power than what the sun outputs in 100 years. And scientists don't really know much about them, especially since the first one was only discovered in 2007. However, scientists do have dozens of theories, from alien starships to imploding black holes, and even to exploding neutron stars. These theories make sense when talking about massive explosions of energy farther away in the universe. But the fact that one happened within our own galaxy, which we know quite a lot about, is really bizarre. According to an astrophysicist with CHIME, this was the most luminous radio burst ever detected by scientists within the galaxy. Not only that, but it was 3,000 times brighter than any other radio signal ever observed. The issue here is that nobody knows what caused it or how it happened, even though it took place right in our cosmic backyard. It's still a total mystery. Number 10. Tiger King. One of the major events of 2020 in pop culture was that of the Netflix documentary series Tiger King. It was released at the beginning of the global pandemic, and as a result of that, people watched the story of Joe Exotic in earnest, as they saw how he opened up a massive exotic animal zoo and created a cult personality of sorts with both the humans and the animals. This was part of the problem, because while you could argue that Joe Exotic had a loving affection for animals as a whole, there were times where he thought the animals were much kinder than they were. Joe Exotic himself was attacked by these tamed animals, and that was just the start of all his problems at the zoo he ran. Of course, as the series continued, there would be many more to come. But it wasn't just Joe Exotic that had this problem. His rival, in Carol Baskin, also had this problem where one of her tamed tigers went and attacked a volunteer. Of course, we all know that Joe Exotic is now incarcerated because he attempted to hire someone to murder Miss Baskin. It's clear that this is a guy who doesn't have all his mental faculties in order. This is a key thing to be noted because many zoos will tell you that you can train an animal but never tame it. And this is proof of that, because many people have been hurt in these two zoos. Have you watched the documentary series about Tiger King? What did you think of it? Are you happy that Joe Exotic is in prison? Tell me what you think of the characters and their risky lifestyles with dangerous animals. Write a comment with your opinion down below. Then be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Number 9. Siegfried and Roy. Arguably one of the most infamous cases of a tamed animal attacking its trainer is that of the famed showman Siegfried and Roy. These two were some of the biggest names in Las Vegas, and the biggest part of their act was that of using tamed and trained white lions and tigers to do all sorts of stunts. In 2003, Roy Horn was doing a show on his birthday in front of a lot of friends and family when one of the white tigers, Montecore, bit Roy in front of the audience and dragged him off stage. When assistants sprayed Montecore with fire-extinguishing carbon dioxide canisters, the tiger finally let Roy go. Now, the official story is that Roy was actually having a stroke and that the tiger dragged him off in order to protect him. But according to a new interview with the pair's animal handler, Chris Lawrence, that's not the case. Many of the handlers thought that Roy was treating the cats more like props than he was respecting them for who they were, Lawrence explained to news outlets. That can only work as long as there are no variables, which is impossible considering that you're dealing with a living, thinking animal. Lawrence further noted that during Roy and the tiger's performance, things quickly spiraled in terms of what the two were supposed to do, and that's what led to the attack. To this day, he's still haunted by what happened. It's unclear exactly what the root cause of the tiger's attack was, but fortunately, the tiger's life was spared. Roy Horn, though, suffered numerous injuries and only partially recovered from them before passing away in 2020 due to complications from coronavirus. Number 8. Kelsey Saffery. Heading back to the realm of Tiger King, it wasn't just Joe Exotic and Carol Baskin who had trouble controlling the animals they felt were tame. On the Joe Exotic side of things was Kelsey Saffery, who, as the Tiger King documentary shows, was one of Joe Exotic's most valuable workers and someone who had a good understanding of how to handle the animals. That is, until one day changed all of that. During a routine feeding of the tigers, Kelsey decided not to use the feeding stick that was provided and felt it would be fine to go and stick his arm through the cage and feed the tiger that way. The tiger reacted on instinct and mauled Kelsey's arm. Of course, this led to the legendary Joe Exotic line of, "I am never going to financially recover from this." At the hospital, Saf was told that the arm was so badly injured by the tiger that it would take many surgeries and years of physical therapy to get it back to its full use. Kelsey decided to amputate the arm instead. He returned to work 5 days later, and in terms of blame, he only blamed himself, not Joe Exotic and not the tiger. Number 7. Valentin Bullich. Valentin Bullich was a young man who got hired by a major circus in Russia. His job at first was just to clean the bear cages, a rather standard opening position. However, he felt he was destined to go and be an animal trainer, and so thus he thought it would be a good idea to start training with the bear cubs and work from there. As he worked with the bears, his confidence grew and grew, to the point where he felt confident enough to actually perform with the bears, including a 7-year-old one named Yasha. Yasha was a trained bear and knew how to do various things on command. Then, in October of 2020, Valentin felt so confident in performing with Yasha that he took the keys to the bear cage, went in it, and locked himself inside with the bear. When he did this, Yasha attacked and basically ripped him limb from limb. Ironically enough, while Yasha did kill him, she wasn't held responsible for the attack because of the improper etiquette done by Bullich. Wild animals are wild for a reason. Number 6. Patty Perry. In late 2019, Patty Perry, who is a well-known conservationist and is known for having a good relationship with animals, was mauled by 2 of the very tigers under her care. She was the founder of Wildlife Environmental Conservation in California. The enclosure had over 50 animals in it, including tigers, eagles, leopards, zebras, and so on. The tigers that mauled her were particularly close to her in theory, as she raised them since they were just cubs. Sure enough, Patty was very comfortable with them, and during playtime, one of the tigers wrapped its arms around her legs, taking her to the ground. After doing so, the other tiger came and pounced on her, and the two began to attack in earnest. Eventually, she was pulled away by coworkers and taken to the hospital where she was able to recover. To this day, she claims the tigers didn't mean to hurt her, and that the incident was just rough play. Number 5. Jennifer Brown. Jennifer Brown was a woman who was mauled by a couple of lions as she tried to go and clean their cages. She worked at the Shoalhaven Zoo in New South Wales in Australia. The lions that were in the cage were a pair of cub brothers named Ariel and Judah. They had been born and raised in the zoo, and as such, the zoo felt they were perfectly tame and thus wouldn't cause anyone harm. But when Jennifer got into the cage, the two pounced on her without missing a beat. She was saved by her coworkers and rushed to the hospital. Upon working on her, the nurses described the attack as vicious, and thus it would not be considered an accident in terms of their actions. However, despite the damage done to Jennifer, who was able to recover thankfully, the lion brothers were spared. Perhaps the zoo didn't want to punish them for their animal instincts, it's hard to tell. Number 4. Marius and Humphrey. There once was a man named Marius Els. He lived in South Africa and he liked having exotic animals as pets. One of his favorites was a hippo named Humphrey. Hippos are fearsome and violent animals, but Marius must have thought that he would not have trouble with his hippo pet. Marius and Humphrey were apparently very close, and Marius truly did love his pet hippo. However, one day Humphrey attacked Marius and killed him. What was left of his body was found in the river days later. The irony of this particular death is manifold. First and foremost, Marius stated many times and in many interviews that he felt that Humphrey was like a son to him. This is because Els had raised his hippo since he was 5 months old, which in most cases would usually mean a large bond of trust and love, even with the most extreme of animals. However, Humphrey had displayed violent behavior in the past. For example, the hippo would throw Els off its back when he tried to ride the creature, even though Els just laughed this off. Humphrey also went and nearly attacked a couple of canoeists on their property once, though Els was able to stop Humphrey and stated that he only went after them because he was hungry. These should have been signs of danger, but Els just laughed them off, and now he's gone. Hippos are dangerous creatures and should always be given a wide berth, as the story proves. Number 3. James Davis. James Davis and his wife had a very special pet, a chimpanzee named Mo. Chimpanzees are seen as a kind of exotic pet, and many will go out of their way to get one. But as Davis would learn, there would be a cost to his action. At first, everything was fine for the couple and their chimp. They saved the chimp from poachers after they'd killed Mo's mother. Decades passed, and in 1999, Mo started acting out. He bit off a part of a neighbor's finger and attacked a police officer. After these events, Mo was put into an animal shelter, but the Davises continued to visit him, including in 2005 when they brought him a cake for his birthday. Unbeknownst to them, 2 other supposedly tame chimps had gotten loose in the shelter, and these 2 attacked James. He was severely mauled, including having most of his face ripped off, including his nose and lips. Somewhat ironically, while he survived the chimp attack, after he got out of a coma, he asked if Mo was all right. Number 2. Pierre Spinel. Elephants are majestic creatures that are meant to be treated with awe and respect, and there are many stories of them getting close with humans in a variety of ways. But at the Mitzpah Shrine in Fort Wayne, Indiana, an unfortunate incident involving an elephant was going to happen. 3 Asian elephants were being escorted onto a trailer, and each of them was over 7,000 pounds. The process of getting them onto the trailer and sealing them up was being done by 40-year-old Pierre Spinel, who was an animal trainer. However, as he was doing the final locking of the trailer, the bar he was holding onto broke, and he fell backwards towards the elephants. After being on the ground, the elephants promptly stomped him to death. Of course, this would have been very easy to do even accidentally given their massive frames. The irony here is that there was no malice in the attack, because elephants are known to be creatures of curiosity and are known to stomp on things they don't openly recognize. Number 1. Ettore Weber. This very well-known incident happened at Circo Orfei, a circus in Italy that's very popular. One of the animal trainers was a man named Ettore Weber, who'd been working with the tigers one day when one of them decided to pounce. Ettore was knocked off his feet and onto the ground, by which time the other tigers came in and attacked him as well. The other circus workers tried to get them off, but to no avail. In fact, the tigers played with his body for a half hour before being done with him. Ettore survived but had major injuries. It was also revealed that Ettore was not the nicest animal trainer around and had abused the tigers, among other animals, quite a lot. Perhaps the tigers were just exacting their revenge. This is why today there are only a few circuses that have animals as part of their acts, as it's seen as cruel to house them and train them, especially given the dangers. Number 11. Akbar Salubiro. This story takes place in a small village in Indonesia, where a man named Akbar Salubiro went missing after he set off for a harvest in his village. After being gone for some time, the man's friends and family went to go and search for him. When they did, they found themselves looking at a massive reticulated python, one of the biggest snakes in the world today. In fact, this one was measured at over 23 feet in length. When the villagers looked at the python, they noticed that there was something large in its body, clearly a meal it had just eaten. If you didn't know, many snakes like this like to swallow their prey whole, and then they let the food break down over time. Regardless, the people feared the worst, so they caught the python and started cutting it open. Sure enough, Akbar's body was within the snake, and it was later noted that he had been constricted by the python, which is its preferred method of killing its prey, and then it swallowed him whole. It should be openly stated though that while Akbar did die from this snake, most reticulated pythons and other snakes of its size don't go after humans that often. That's mainly because humans are oddly shaped and are often in good shape, so it's hard for a snake to be able to attack you and then swallow you whole, though clearly this python was able to get around that disadvantage. Number 10. A human arm. In 1935, a pair of brothers decided to go fishing off the coast of Australia. At one point, they prepared their lines, cast them, and then went to sleep. And when they woke up, they found their fishing line frayed and a bunch of fish parts all over it. When they reeled it in, there was a tiger shark attached to it and it was still alive. So they took it to shore and gave it to an aquarium. But a week later, the shark did something nobody expected. It vomited up a human arm. On the surface, this doesn't seem so odd. After all, tiger sharks are known to attack humans, and so one ripping off an arm and eating may seem par for the course. But this was much more than it appeared by a large margin. Examination of the arm found that the victim was most definitely not dead in the ocean somewhere, as the arm was cut off by a knife, and a tattoo on the arm was able to be identified and tied to the death of a former boxer turned police informant. His name was Jim Smith. He decided to blackmail some people and he got killed for his troubles. The arm was kept as proof of the deed, and then once done, the killers threw it in the ocean. This arm actually helped solve the mystery of Smith's death, and it's all because the shark ate it, kept it, and then revealed it in front of an audience, so to speak. A shark actually helped to solve a crime. So have you ever had a close encounter with a shark? Did you see fins circling while you were at the beach? Did you get as far away from the water as possible? Shark attacks are rare, but they can really catch you by surprise. Tell me about your shark encounters in the comments below. Then be sure to subscribe if you haven't already and get quick access to the next awesome video coming out soon. Number 9. The remains in the croc. The South Alligator River in Australia is actually a bit of a misnomer in terms of what's there. It was named because it was believed that alligators happily roamed in the area. And that's not exactly true, but it's close. Alligators don't live in that part of the world, but their cousins do. In fact, its main predator and inhabitant is the deadly saltwater crocodile. That happens to be the largest crocodile species in the world today, as well as one of the most aggressive species of croc. This was proven in 2014 at Kakadu National Park. An older man and his family were going across a body of water at Kakadu when suddenly a 16-foot saltwater croc came out of the water, snatched him, and disappeared with him in the water. After he disappeared, park rangers went and searched for him, and they did shoot 2 crocs that appeared to have been the culprits. One of them did indeed have human remains in their body, and after a DNA test, it was confirmed to be the victim. Number 8. James Bartley, a modern-day Jonah. Those are the words that are inscribed on the tombstone of James Bartley. If you don't know, Jonah was a man from the Christian Bible that disobeyed God, and as a result of that, he got swallowed by a whale. So what does that have to do with James Bartley? Well, he too got swallowed by a whale, a sperm whale in fact. Though ironically, his tale is a little more like Captain Ahab in Moby Dick than Jonah's, at least at first. Because in the late 19th century, James Bartley owned a whaling vessel. The vessel itself came under attack by a sperm whale right off the Falkland Islands. During the attack, it's said that Bartley was indeed swallowed whole by the whale. Later on, the whale died of constipation, another irony, and it was caught by the peers of Bartley. And this is where the twist comes in. It's ironic because according to the story, the whalers that caught the sperm whale skinned it to get at its meat. When they did, Bartley was in the whale and still alive, as he had only been in the whale for about 36 hours. His body was bleached because of the various things in the whale, and he was blind, but he was still alive. The problem, though, is that this story is heavily disputed, including many stating that a human would likely not be able to survive in a whale without suffocating or even drowning. Nevertheless, the story endures, and it's something that makes you kinda wonder. Number 7. Watiba. This tale is also one that hails from Indonesia, in the village known as Sulawesi, and it too features a person getting swallowed whole by a serpent. However, this time, it was a woman named Watiba, who was 54 when it happened to her. She was checking out her vegetable garden when suddenly she vanished from sight. As the villagers looked around, they found her sandal and her machete. As they continued searching, they once again found a reticulated python, and this one too had a rather large belly that clearly had something or someone in it. They then killed the snake and then took it to a place where they could film gutting it, and when they did, they found Watiba inside. Like the previous snake victim, she had been constricted to death, and this allowed the snake to swallow her whole. One can only imagine the thoughts of the villagers after they lost 2 of their own to these serpents. Number 6. Michael Ford. In Florida, within Polk Country, the police were called to a nearby mine. Why? According to one employee, they had seen an alligator on the premises, and the jaw of said beast was clamped down around a human body, or at least part of one. The Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission came in to investigate, and they were able to capture the alligator and then kill it. They would then find Michael Ford partially inside of the creature. The gator itself was 12 feet long and weighed over 450 pounds. It was more than big enough to kill a human and start eating it should the need arise. The mystery of this story is how this all happened. No one knows why Michael Ford was near that mine or near that canal, and whether he was killed by the gator or drowned and the alligator simply ate him. Number 5. Sam Kellett. There are various shark species that are known to attack humans in great numbers if the circumstances are right, but the act of truly eating a human and doing so in a complete and whole fashion is honestly a bit more limited. While sharks are widely known to attack humans for various reasons, they're usually fine with just killing us, not eating us. One major exception to this rule, though, was Sam Kellett. He was a 28-year-old teacher who was diving and spearfishing in southern Australia during 2014. He was near Edithborough and doing his thing when suddenly a shark came around, attacked him, and swallowed him whole. The attack was so complete that the only thing found from Sam after the attack were his diving weights and his spear gun, showing the totality of the action on the shark's part. This is a very atypical kind of shark attack because, again, sharks don't feed on people. They attack them, but eating them so completely is not common amongst shark species. Even great whites don't do that. What might be the most curious thing of all was that the family of Sam didn't want the shark hunted down or killed, nor any other shark in the area. He knew he was a visitor in their backyard, and the last thing he would want for this shark or any other is to be hunted down and culled, they said in a statement released via South Australian police. Number 4. Tiger shark hand. In 2019, a tiger shark was found and killed near Réunion, a French island that's right outside of Madagascar. Within this shark, though, was something that no one expected: the hand of a Scottish man, complete with his wedding ring. If you're wondering why the tiger shark was cut open, that's because it was seen multiple times near the beach of the island, thus near people. The shark was killed to prevent attacks from happening, and after they cut it open, the hand was found. Apparently, the man was a tourist, and he went into the water to go and explore as he was a strong swimmer. However, this is apparently where he met the shark, and the rest, as they say, is history. Number 3. Ricky Gagnon. You might think that these stories only happen every so often, but this tale comes from very recently, July of 2020 in fact. Ricky Gagnon was a 14-year-old teenager living in Malaysia, and one day he decided to do a little bit of exploring and searching for things. Soon he had vanished, and a missing person report was filed. But according to his aunt, he was snatched by a saltwater crocodile. After finding the saltwater croc in question, the 15-foot beast was cut open and Ricky's body was indeed found inside, or at least certain parts of it were. The family was given the remains so they could do a proper funeral. Number 2. Finger in snapping turtle. While most turtles are fair to be considered harmless, the exception to the rule is that of the snapping turtle, especially ones like the alligator snapping turtle. It's clear that they are known to be aggressive and not afraid to bite things at the drop of a hat. Now, one Louisiana fisherman found this out in a shocking way in 2018, because said fisherman caught an alligator snapping turtle and after preparing the creature, found a human finger inside the turtle's stomach. Who the finger belonged to was never discovered. Number 1. Andy S.O. Orang. On the island of Borneo, the search for a man named Andy S.O. Orang began after he was reported missing. However, his body was soon found, in large part. His arm and his leg were missing. Not far from the body was a 20-foot-long saltwater crocodile, and after it was killed, it was discovered that the remaining body parts of Andy were inside of it. It's believed that Andy got caught by the croc and then was drowned and put into a death roll that allowed the croc to go and eat his limbs. Thanks for watching. What did you think of these stories? Which one did you think was the most shocking? Let me know in the comments below and then be sure to subscribe to World List, and I'll see you next time.